Welcome back, guys, to some more Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel content. Um, so in today's episode, I'm probably just going to do, probably go over 3 games that I had recently. Apparently the main reason I'm doing it is because the last video actually was very choppy and lower quality. I'm not really sure what was going on in the settings. But I'm here to try and fix that as best that I can. So today I'm just gonna walk you guys through 3 games that I did, and yeah. If there are any audio issues, feel sure to let me know in the comments below. I'm hoping things are better, but obviously I need your assistance to fix things. So thank you very much. And in this game, I believe we're playing against Cyber Dragon. So the beauty of playing against Cyber Dragon, right, is that this matchup is kind of I wouldn't say it's hard. Heretic Seal isn't very good in it though, because they can link it off pretty much prematurely. But yeah. So we're gonna get into a pretty bad Called by the Grave chain for my opponent. He really wanted that Maxi to resolve, and it's not going to. At least I think this is Sidra, but I could be wrong. The only downside I have with Master Duel is when doing replays, I don't think you can see your opponent's hand or their deck, what they're on until they play a card. Yeah, see, this is so yeah, it is Sidra though. Yeah, so right here, I'm forced to seal bounce this, just because he could just mega fleet away seal and then I get nothing. So by doing this, I put him on have an extender or have Cyber Dragon, because he searched overflow, but he doesn't have any Sidras in his graveyard. So this is actually super advantageous for me. So we're gonna go out with Parlor, and I'm gonna start setting up for the battle phase. I'm gonna get some good damage in there. And we should be able to end on the good board, seal the show, and tidying as well, because we haven't used Chamber's effect yet. Small misplay. I played show in this zone. You always want to summon your boss monsters in this zone over here, just because it plays around Relinquished Anula and the Geo Transmitter. Those are they're not very common cards, but it's why lose to those, you know what I mean? So yeah, I was supposed to summon in this zone, but it's not that big a deal, honestly. Right, so he's gonna force out show with Lightning Storm, and I feel like negating is the right play here, just because I have some really powerful back row options against Cyber Dragon specifically. Droplet can pretty much force his hand on using Infinity. Well, not really force his hand, but punish him for summoning it and attempting to use its effect. And then Tidying plays around Machine Duplication, thankfully. Now this was strange on my opponent's part. I'm very curious as to why they didn't just Ash the Seal. It would not have mattered because I still have a body for Tidying. But it was just strange that they didn't do that. Yeah, see, this is why I kept this is why Tidying is really strong in the Sidra matchup, because Machine Duplication actually has to have the monster on the field for it to resolve, because it checks on resolution. So that was a pretty easy game, all things considered. I still don't know why my opponent didn't just Ash the Seal, but I mean, if he was gonna Ash the Parlor, it's why not, right? And then in the next game I did today, there's also a mirror match in here. I believe this is the mirror match, or it might be the next game. But I guess we'll have to see, right? Yeah. This is the mirror match. I want to know how to get this background, but I don't know how to get it. It's pretty cool looking. It's the World Legacy one. I think that's the sword. Right, so this game ends up being a very interesting game of Dragonmaid versus Dragonmaid, as you're gonna see. Both of us kind of were stretched for playables in this game. I only have 2 hand traps. He only and 1 L. I had 2 starters, but like they're the same one, so like couldn't really do anything with that. And the same thing ends up being true for him. He only has Parlor, and he has no extension. So he's gonna call by my Veiler, and I'm like, if that's gonna happen, I might as well do the second one, right? Because what's the point if it's gonna be turned off for 2 turns? So now we're in a very interesting simplified game state where my opponent has 2 cards in his hand, and I have 1. So I'm behind until, you know, you're drawing for turn. Obviously, that puts things in my favor. But I don't want to play in a Dragonmaid Tidy, right? Because that's like my only, that's the obvious fear here, right? So I'm gonna go into Striker Dragon, run it over, and then commit in the chamber, so that this way, when I make seal, it can't get bounced or anything like that. Or rather, I could make seal. If he flipped it up, I would not be able to make seal, but I would still have chamber plus tidying set. So one of the downsides, I'll pause the video real quick to talk about seal specifically, is this card is super strong provided you have something to bounce. Like if your opponent doesn't put anything on the board, then the onus is on you to actually commit to a play with seal. So sometimes the best way to play around seal is to just not put any face-up cards on the board. So now, in most cases, I wouldn't be able to do anything. But because I've been playing Dragonmaid Downtime in this format, which is really, really good. Like, this card is really, really good. I might even start playing it. Just not because I think it's that great, but because if you play a slower, pure, methodical game plan with this deck, this card is actually really good against, like, this right here, like setting cards, right? But it comes in handy for a completely different reason. I'm going to flip it face up so that I can use tidying to target seal and bounce the new set, then tribute seal to bounce the downtime. He's going to max see me, and I mean, that sucks, but it's like not that big a deal. I'm just going to summon Parlor and dump Lorpar anyway. But yeah, downtime actually came in handy purely because of the fact that it's a continuous trap here. Otherwise, I would have been in a very awkward position versus the maxi he had in hand on my follow-up turn. So I'm going to Parlor and use her effect to try and tag into the Lorpar for the battle phase immediately, because I want to immediately play around like whatever this set could be by just putting the damage on board right away. And it lucks out that this set ended up being a dud, but whatever this Ghost Bell against Parlor doesn't work out for him, because not only do I have Chamber in the graveyard, I have Tidying. So I get to banish the Tidying, special summon the Chamber, and make the same play anyway. Only this time, you know, I'm going to have Show. So I ended up winning that game. I thought that was a very cool mirror match. So yeah. And then the last game I played today is... I can't remember what I actually played against in this game. I guess we'll find out, right? Yeah. Oh boy, like this deck is so much like, I wouldn't say it's better, but it's also like the thing about Maxi, right, is like it's true that it makes some decks worse, but it also makes some deck better. But the problem I have with saying like it makes this deck better is because if you don't draw Maxi, you're kind of playing a very slow game that you need a bunch of tech choices to make it out. Now, the only reason I wouldn't play it this way in the TCG, except for maybe in this current format, because this current format is super combo heavy, so it might be better to invest in cards that don't lose to, you know, the format staples like Droplet, etc., etc. But normally I would play a game that's more advantageous to my own combo potential, just so that I could close games out faster or put up more meaningful interaction. And you'll see what I mean, right? In this game, where Maxi ends up like not resolving, and I had to get carried by Nibiru. So if I was playing against a deck or a player that had the foresight to play around Nibiru, you know, I probably would have lost here. But and like, that's mostly why I would not say the deck is better off in the format with Maxi, because if Maxi doesn't resolve, you're just playing a really, really bad deck. As far as like it's a good deck, but it's bad in terms of like tier list. So like you're playing well below your weight class, well above your weight class if you're playing this deck and you don't draw Maxi. It's that important, almost centralizingly so. But I do like playing it this way. I don't play Black Metal Dragon anymore just because like I want to play around Maxi. Like that card is so prolific in this format. I want to do everything in my power to not lose to it. So I cut out as many like free special summons and focused as much on the engine as I could. The downside is sometimes I just lose games to not drawing a starter in time. You know, it does happen. You have 12. You have Kitchen, Chamber, Parlor, and then in my opinion, because Prosperity can dig 6 cards in, that card is basically a starter. Like, it's pretty rare that you would rip Prosperity without a starter in hand and not rip a starter. Even if, like, in some cases, ripping Nurse could just be enough to get the engine going, right? So, but, yeah. So I was nervous here because Lure of Darkness is actually a really good top deck for him. Because he can get to, you know, his cards get advantage when they're banished, and then he can get to Thunder Dragon Fusion. And Titan actually, Titan's pretty annoying because it's actually pretty difficult to get around because of its protection. Like, you really just gotta beat it over in battle. That's like the only way to get rid of it, unless you're playing this deck, in which case you're fine. And so the token doesn't matter. The token doesn't do anything. The token will be popped next turn. My opponent might believe that like he survived this turn, but he really hasn't, because you can do some very cute things with downtime as far as advantage. Like I've definitely like, I really like this card against back row, and like I like that in situations where you're not playing against back row, it's still going to do something because of that search effect. And like with Earnest, it makes Dragonmaid Earnest so much stronger. Like I might even start playing this in my like modern TCG list just to give it another once over. I used to play it back in the day, but I found it to be very underwhelming, and it might still be, but like I feel like the card it's just so good in this format. Like Dragonmaid Downtime, it lets me I don't have to main Cosmic, right? Unless everybody and their mother is playing Eldritch, I don't have to main Cosmic. So that was my logic. That was my thinking on why I decided to play that card. Even though I'm historically been a huge advocate for not playing it, I would definitely play it over Cosmic in this format, just because you want to have something for floodgates and back row heavy matchups. And sometimes like resolving a chamber and searching downtime just wins you the game against those decks, because they can't keep the tempo with you. And this card, like, you could essentially lock their back row. The only problem is if they get too many pieces of back row and you can't like mount up like a tidying or a downtime or like a seal and a downtime, it might get overran. But in a format where skill drain is legal, being able to normal summon, affect the search, and have your and have your opponent flip skill drain, it's pretty good to just, you know, chain downtime. You don't even have to bounce the skill drain if you don't need to. You could just bounce like the monster to dodge the skill drain, or like you could bounce the skill drain, which is probably better in most cases. If your opponent has a second one, it would suck. Or if your opponent has what's the card? Infinite Impermanence or Effect Failure, you can use downtime to dodge those cards too. Even Forbidden Droplet is a lot easier to play around with Dragonmaid Downtime. So I'm definitely going to be testing this card in the current like TCG format, just because it's pretty good. I don't ever really search it unless I'm playing against back row decks. If I'm playing against a back row deck, I'm searching downtime every, like, that's what I'm doing. Otherwise, you search pretty much every other card in your deck and you'll probably never see it. But as a one-of in the deck that isn't technically a brick, I think it's good. I like it better than playing Cosmic against Drytron, because now I get to have so many like options. Like I play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 dedicated hand traps, and then, you know, 3 extra tech choices in Droplet, which you need this card. This card helps you play around fucking calamities and the virtual world board. Not virtual, the Drytron board, so because you can stop the Ben 10 and you can stop the Herald before they can get like an Ava in the grave and load up on orange lights. So yeah, and like I just wanted to see go second cards, but I also wanted go second cards that could work going first, and all of these go second cards work if you go first. Even Nib, because like, you know, you play a Dragonmaid deck, so you get so much advantage, and then Seal, if for some reason Seal gets impermed and you still have Nib in him, you can still Nib anyway and tribute the Seal. You know what I mean? Like, your opponent thinks they're safe, but they're really not, sort of thing. Because now you've taken the imperm out of their hand and you still nib them. So yeah, I actually really like this list. I think this deck, I will admit, I think the deck is better positioned in this format specifically, but I do think that's entirely off of the back of this card deterring players from going all in on like combo without lowering their consistency with cards to counter it, right? Like, because a Drytron player loses to Maxi, so they have to play Called by the Grave and Maxi itself and cross out Designator and likely maybe Ash Blossom because this card also negates Maxi, just so that they don't lose to Maxi. And while that may not sound like a big deal, that's like 9 cards dedicated to stopping this that don't contribute to your engine. So the overall consistency that players are willing to play with is just lower. That's my theory anyway. Perhaps I could be wrong, you know. Perhaps this deck just is objectively better positioned in this format. I mean, I don't agree. Because this format is heavily inspired by the OCG, and like this deck doesn't really like perform well over there anymore. Virtual World was the only reason why, but as soon as like that deck got taken out of the format, this one kind of went with it. But it's food for thought. Anyways, that's going to be it for the video. You know, here's my updated list if anyone was curious what I was climbing the ladder with. I made Platinum Day 2. Not Platinum Day 2. Platinum Rank 2. I should be Platinum Rank 1 like maybe tomorrow or the day after. I don't know. I've not been grinding that hard. I just play like 3 or 4 games a day just because I have other things to do. And it's like, I don't want to burn out on this right away. But that's going to be it for the video. If you guys enjoyed it, please leave a like. Comment down below and subscribe for more. Let me know if there's any like issues with the video so I can like try and you know, troubleshoot what exactly happened in that last video versus this one, where because it was super choppy and I just didn't like it. But I'm rambling. Anyways, you all have a good evening and thank you very much for watching. Take care.